In the mid-90s, the gaming industry was on fire. It was a time of fierce competition, especially between Sega and Nintendo, the two titans going head-to-head for console dominance. Sega was pushing the limits of what a Sega Genesis could do, squeezing every bit of power out of their aging 16-bit system to compete against the juggernaut that was the Super Nintendo. In 1995, they dropped Vectorman, a game that would not only push the Genesis hardware to its absolute breaking point, but would also leave a lasting impression on gamers who had grown up in the era of Sonic and Streets of Rage. Released in October of that year, Vectorman was developed by Blue Sky Software, a studio that wasn't exactly a household name, but had quietly built a reputation for creating some solid titles. This wasn't Blue Sky's first rodeo with Sega. They'd already worked on titles like Jurassic Park for the Genesis, but Vectorman was something different. This was a game designed to show the world that Sega still had plenty of fight left in them, even with the Genesis reaching the end of its cycle. In terms of sheer ambition, Vectorman stood as a symbol of Sega's tenacity during a time when the company was feeling the pressure from competitors and the looming transition to 32-bit consoles like the Sony PlayStation. As we dive deeper, we'll see just how Vectorman not only navigated the technical limitations of its time, but also set new standards, leaving a legacy that has persisted in the gaming community. So gear up and let's rewind to those radical 90s, where Vectorman is waiting to reboot. Let's crack over the development cartridge and look inside the creation of Vectorman, where innovation wasn't just a buzzword, it was a core directive. The development team at Blue Sky Software wasn't playing around. They were on a mission to push the Sega Genesis to its limits. Vectorman's creation was a technical marvel of the mid-90s, achieved through a blend of creativity and cutting-edge software. Blue Sky utilized a technique that was groundbreaking for its time: pre-rendered 3D graphics. This process involved crafting detailed 3D models on more powerful computer systems, then rendering these models into 2D sprites. This method allowed Vectorman to achieve a visual fidelity that stood head and shoulders above typical sprite-based characters. Each of Vectorman's animations was smooth and fluid, mimicking the 3D feel within a 2D platform, creating an illusion of depth that was rare for games of that era. The game's unique engine was another piece of wizardry. It allowed complex animations and multi-layered backgrounds that gave Vectorman its distinct alive feel. The environment wasn't just a backdrop. It was an active participant in the game's narrative, with pulsating landscapes and dynamically lit levels that responded to gameplay. But the innovation didn't stop with the graphics. The developers also implemented an environmental narrative, using the setting itself to tell a story of a world overrun by robotic forces. This approach wasn't just about setting a scene. It was about immersing players in a world where every corner held a story, every enemy a challenge born from the very fabric of a polluted Earth. Blue Sky Software, through Vectorman, showcased what was possible when technology met creativity, delivering a game that was not only ahead of its time, but also a herald of what the future of gaming could hold. Dive into the core of Vectorman and you'll find gameplay mechanics that were not just cool, they were mega cool. At its heart, Vectorman is a run-and-gun platformer, but it packs a punch with mechanics that keep players on their toes from start to finish. First up, Vectorman himself, a robot made of orbs. This isn't just for show. It's central to how he interacts with his world. Each orb is capable of transforming, giving Vectorman an arsenal of abilities that vary from level to level. 1 minute you're a bomb, the next a drill, or even a fish. This shape-shifting mechanic doesn't just spice up the gameplay, it's pivotal for solving puzzles and blasting through enemies, making it crucial for players to master the transformations to progress. The gameplay is fast-paced, requiring quick reflexes and even quicker thinking. Vectorman can shoot in all directions, jump, and even double jump, which is essential for navigating the multi-tiered levels filled with enemies and obstacles. The levels themselves are designed to challenge the player's understanding of Vectorman's abilities, often requiring a combination of shooting precision and strategic transformations to advance. Enemy design deserves a shout out too. Each adversary is crafted to challenge different aspects of Vectorman's arsenal, from airborne threats that test your aiming skills to ground-based foes that force you to strategize your transformations. The bosses, in particular, are massive and menacing, requiring players to decipher patterns and exploit weaknesses, a true nod to the boss battles of arcade glory days. Energy and power-ups scattered throughout the levels add additional layers of strategy. Players must decide when to grab that extra boost or save it for a dire moment, balancing risk and reward in real time. It's these gameplay elements that not only define Vectorman's identity, but also ensured its place as a beloved and challenging title in the pantheon of classic games. When Vectorman hit the shelves in 1995, it didn't just drop. It exploded onto the scene with the impact of a well-placed grenade in one of its own levels. The critical reception was overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers and gamers alike praising its innovative use of pre-rendered 3D graphics, challenging gameplay, and its atmospheric depth. Magazines like GamePro and Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it high marks for pushing the Sega Genesis to its limits, highlighting its technical achievements and the smooth, responsive controls. But Vectorman wasn't just a critical darling. It resonated with the gaming community as well. Players embraced its challenging mechanics and the complexity of its levels, making it a beloved title for those who mastered its intricacies. Its release at the tail end of the Genesis's life cycle helped it stand out as a swan song for the console, showcasing what was technically possible even as the gaming world was shifting towards the next generation of consoles. After the resounding success of the original Vectorman, the momentum was undeniable, and a sequel was almost a foregone conclusion. Vectorman 2 landed in 1996, just a year after its predecessor, hitting the shelves with high expectations from fans and critics alike. The sequel stayed true to the core mechanics that made the first game a standout, but ventured into new territory with its themes and settings. Vectorman 2 took players from the mechanical and urban sprawl into the organic environments, with levels set in Earth's more natural habitats, but with a new twist. The game's settings were now infested with mutant insects, presenting new challenges and enemies, and pushing the narrative of ecological disaster even further. The shift was a bold move. It diversified the gameplay and narrative, but maintained the series' signature, high-quality graphics and challenging gameplay. However, while Vectorman 2 was generally well received, it didn't quite capture the same magic as the original. Critics noted that the sequel, while solid, didn't bring enough new innovations to the table and felt more like an extension of the first game rather than a new experience. This reception reflected in its lesser impact compared to the first game, though it still held a respectable place within the gaming community. Aside from the direct sequel, Vectorman did not spawn a large franchise or continue a stream of spin-offs, which is somewhat unique for such a popular title. Despite this, the character and games remained cult favorites, often remembered and revisited for their distinctive style and challenging gameplay. The lack of extensive follow-ups has kept the Vectorman series a relative pristine memory in the minds of gamers, a snapshot of a specific era in gaming, unattained by the dilution that sometimes accompanies larger franchises. The community around Vectorman is still vibrant though, and it's a mix of nostalgic seekers and new age gamers who appreciate the art of retro gaming. Online forums and social media platforms are abuzz with discussions about the game's hardest levels, speedrun strategies, and graphical techniques, proving that Vectorman still captivates and challenges even the most modern gamers. Moreover, Vectorman has inspired a slew of fan-made content, from CD-ROM hacks that introduce new levels and challenges to fan art that reimagines the game's iconic green hero in various artistic styles. These creations are not just tributes, but they're extensions of the game's universe, fueled by the creativity and affection of its hardcore fanbase. And there you have it, the whirlwind tour through the electrifying world of Vectorman. From a groundbreaking spectacle of the 90s to a cherished classic, Vectorman has danced, blasted, and transformed its way through the annals of gaming history, leaving not just a trail of defeated warheads, but also a legion of devoted fans and a lasting legacy. So, whether you're reliving the nostalgia through a dusty old console or discovering it afresh through an emulator, Vectorman remains a pixel-perfect reminder of when games were hard, graphics were groundbreaking, and saving the world was all in a day's work for a green-orbed-filled hero. Stay charged, gamers, and remember, when it comes to cleaning up the planet or just cleaning up your next gaming session, sometimes it's okay to think like a robot. Just try not to act like one. Unless, of course, you're playing Vectorman. If you enjoyed exploring the history and making of Vectorman, click this video here to see more from the Retro Reload. And, as always, thank you for watching.